At Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau, and it is lunchtime. Crowd filing in. We've got room for you if you would like to stop by and join us here for the Coaches Show, and more importantly, to sample their terrific menu, which of course includes their award-winning jumbo wings, popular for both dine-in, carry-out, and now with DoorDash delivery. And their menu features their freshly made burgers, and they've revamped their burger menu, including their brand new Mushroom and Swiss Diner Burger. If you're a Mushroom and Swiss fan, as I am, maybe you check that out. They also have wraps here at Wings, subs, quesadillas, entree salads, smoked ribs. And if you're interested in appetizers, might I suggest the massive ultimate nachos and their deep-fried spicy pickle chips. And if you're coming for lunch, their lunch specials start at just $9.49. It's the home of the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Wings, etc., good food, and great times. We're going to be talking Red Hawk basketball with Coach Brad Korn. SEMO getting set to head to Evansville for the OVC tournament. The women and the men. The women a 4 seed, the men are a 5 seed. And we'll talk with Coach Korn. Aquan Smart is going to join us a little bit later on in the show, the former Maryland Terrapin. We'll talk about his days at Maryland and Florida International as well, and his time here with the Red Hawks. Let's welcome in Coach Brad Korn. Coach, how are you?
Been better, been worse. Frustrated. But here we are, March, basketball right around the corner. So got to get ready for that. I have a big challenge ahead of us, obviously, in Evansville, 4 in 4 days. But I do feel that this team can do it. But again, you can't do it on Saturday unless we get it done on Wednesday. So obviously that's our focus, and take a game by game, a day at a time, and that starts today at 1:30 at practice.
Well, I can tell you, I saw a team win 4 and 4. Austin P did it, and Dave Luce's next to last season as the head coach at Austin P. So it has been done. I have seen it done.
Yeah, and again, you tie for third, but it doesn't feel like it. Obviously, being the 5 seed, and we were in a good position heading into the last 2 weeks of the season, and really played really good basketball a week ago, and then kind of fell off the rails a little bit here the last couple games. And not really off the rails. Obviously, Saturday Edwardsville game was just a bad game. We just played poorly. But the Lindenwood game, we played well, obviously without Phil, but just not good enough to win. We still should have won that game, despite all of that stuff, and I'm sure you'll ask about that next. But still should have won that game and still put ourselves in position. And but as the saying goes, it is what it is. We are what we are, and that's a 5 seed. And now we got to go do it. There's little time now to be talking. I got to go walk the walk.
So as you go to the OVC tournament, I would think your team has to have a little confidence because you beat every team in the league. Every team in the league except UT Martin. They beat you twice.
And they're on the other side of the bracket.
And you're the only team, OVC team, that went to Moorhead and won. They were 8-1 in conference home games, and their only loss was to you in Philip Russell's 37-point game. He and Mark Freeman were just a fabulous one-on-one duel. That was a great basketball game. So going in, and I mean, you could have beaten Martin in one or even both of those games. So going in, we can beat any team here because we've already done it.
Yeah, and I think that'll give our guys a lot of confidence. And then going back even to the very first year that we were here, we went to Evansville and played that game in the COVID year. Just so we could get the experience of being in the Ford Center. And then we won over there this year, obviously, at the beginning of the year. So we've been in that building. We've won some games in that building. So, again, there's going to be some familiarity with that. Hopefully we can take care of business Wednesday. And again, now you just start getting that momentum that we try to have carrying into the tournament. But hopefully we can start that momentum on Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday. And then, obviously, if you can do that, no matter who you're playing or no matter who's in the bracket, everyone is going to be running on fumes come Saturday. So just going to be it's a great challenge. It's a big challenge for us to see what we're about, to see what kind of resolve and resiliency we have as a group to bounce back. We've done it a lot over the course of the year. It has not been an easy year from a standpoint of injuries, consistency, illnesses. There's been a lot of different rotations and guys coming in and out. Israel Barnes has missed a bunch of games. Chris Harris missed games. Dylan Branson missed the first 6 weeks of the season. Kobe Clark has only played in 6 conference games all season. Our best defender, our leading rebounder. Josh Early has missed games due to injury. So you can sit here and go down the line of a long season, of a lot of ups and downs. But here we are, 4 games, 4 days right in front of you. But again, Wednesday is obviously the most important day, especially a team that just got us in double overtime at third place. So that still stings a little bit.
So the way that it looks now, your road to the championship game would be you've got Lindenwood at 6:30 on Wednesday. The winner gets Tennessee State, and the winner of that game gets Morehead State. So you know potentially what it's going to take to get to the championship game. It's Lindenwood, it's Tennessee State, it's Morehead State.
Yeah, and like you said, it's teams that we've beat before. You look at the Lindenwood game. Obviously, played really, really well at home here. Double overtime there. Tennessee State had us down early to start at our place, and then we come roaring back and beat them by 17 points at our place. And then we had one of our 3 double-digit losses on the season. We've lost 3 games by double figures this whole season, and that was one of them at third place. And we just played a very poor game, just not ready to go in that game. So, and then obviously our games with Moorhead have always been tight. Even the loss at home was a 6-point game, and we didn't play particularly well, but still had chances down the stretch. We had the ball with down 4 with a minute and a half left against Moorhead. So again, we've put ourselves in position in all those games, and we'll be very familiar with those opponents, obviously. But again, we've made some strides and progress, and we've played in the semis a year ago, and so now we've got to rely on some of those experiences and really rely on some of the failures that we've had this season to prepare us for these games coming up, and to not let that happen again. Because that's what I told the guys after the Edwardsville games. If we play like this again, guys, the season's over. And so now just understanding that, knowing what that is, and now applying it to the 4 games in 4 days is going to be very important for us.
So you didn't like the way your team played Saturday, obviously, and you said we just did not play well as a coach. And I know you're always conferencing with your assistant coaches. Did you guys come to any conclusions as to, boy, we just had a clunker here?
No, it just we started the game out very, very well. The first 5 to 6, 7 minutes of the game, we were ready to go. And maybe it was a totality of the game against Lindenwood, getting Phil back. I don't know exactly what it was. The most disappointing thing for me, Eric, was just that we just seemed to just be okay with what was happening. We didn't show enough grit and fight and toughness to when things didn't go right to buckle down or to bow our back and say, no, enough is enough. Well, yeah, you made a little run or you got up 6 or 8 points, but now that's where it's going to stop, and we're going to fight and claw our way back from that point. We just there just was too many okay, let you go score. And we haven't been that way all season long, really, for the most part. So that was the most disappointing thing, especially late in the year. To exactly put your finger on it, other than those things, the rebounding and the lack of toughness and desire of knowing what's at stake and knowing what's on the line was just probably the most disappointing thing. But why that exactly happened, not really sure. Because again, before the game, we were ready to go. To start the game, we were ready to go.
5 minutes into the game, you had an 8-point lead.
Yeah, so it wasn't like we just came out and laid down from the start. It just, when things didn't go well for us, then we just got bogged down and just seemed to be okay with what was happening in the game. And that was disappointing, because I don't think that we understood. I don't think we have understood in our games, even TSU. When you beat somebody by 17 points, when Edwardsville came into our place, they were the hottest team, in the conference. They were one of the hottest teams in the mid-major, if you will, country at that time. They were 10-4, 3-1 in league, and we won that game wire to wire, and really kind of dominated the game. And so you got to understand, people aren't going to just let you do that again the next time, or just because that's what happened the first time, that's not going to be a repeat of what happened. So again, to me, more of a mindset than anything, of understanding what the opponent is, what you did to them. Lindenwood stormed the court on us after they beat us. So it's like, it's understanding that you're no longer you just don't walk into a game and just, yeah, we're going to play. People are there to beat you, especially if you handled them the time before, and we handled both those teams before, and so they were ready, and everybody is playing for something at that point, and what they're playing for can't be greater than what we're playing for. And so that was probably the most disappointing thing, is that we just didn't seem to understand and grasp the severity and the level of toughness it's going to take to get that done.
Lindenwood, now that's who you're going to play on Wednesday. Lindenwood had to just pull, 2 remarkable wins to get into the tournament. They're down 20 with 14 minutes to play against you, and come back and win in double overtime. Then they hit a 3 at the buzzer to beat Little Rock and send them to the tournament. So that's a team playing with a lot of confidence, and a team that needed to have some things go right to get in, and
at least obviously 3 of their wins, us, Little Rock, and even Little Rock at Little Rock, was the same thing. They were down 19, 17 points,
Right.
20 points, and they came all the way back. So it's kind of been how they've won their games in league. Is TSU, they were down 20 early in the season before we played them. I think they came into our place 2-2, and they really could have been 4-0 at the time. They lost 2 at the buzzer. But so that's been a little bit of what they've been able to do. Is I think teams, and I think especially us, we got up early. We're up 20 in the second half. Oh, we're good. We'll be fine. We just keep playing these next minutes. The clock will run out and we'll win. It's like that's not how college basketball works. And so I think that they've been able to do that because they were down 20 against Little Rock again, same way, and then just came roaring back. And I think Little Rock's game might have been even worse because they were up 17, I think, with 5 minutes left, and they came all the way back. So, it's what they've done. They've kept coming. They keep fighting. They make timely shots, get a ton of confidence, and then obviously they play way, way better at home.
So you had to go into the Lindenwood game without Philip Russell, and it was a violation of the sportsmanship policy, is officially the term from the Ohio Valley Conference. What were your initial thoughts, and when did you get word that you were going to have to play the Lindenwood game without Russell?
Obviously, I had some time to think about this. I figured you'd ask. And here's how I'll respond. Does Phil play with a bunch of energy and emotion? Yes. Is Phil a really good player? Yes. Does Phil's emotion sometime overtake him in games and cause him some trouble? Yes. Has the staff, myself, tried to talk to him about that and get him to understand what that might lead to? Yes. Did the conference say something to him prior to the suspension of, hey, need to tone it down a little bit? Yes. All those yeses, did Philip Russell deserve to be suspended? In my opinion, absolutely not. I don't feel he should have been suspended from the standpoint of no one else is suspended. And so now we're creating this.
And you're talking about a guy at Eastern Illinois that swung at a fan, and the OVC did not step in and give him any sport.
I think he did. I think he was suspended for a game.
By EIU, but not by the OVC. This suspension for Russell came from the conference, correct?
It did, and I think maybe what
and
had
Hodges
happened,
did not.
Whether we would have suspended
Right.
Phil ourselves or by the league, I didn't. Again, at what point, where do you put the mark? And I think that there's a league-wide image sportsmanship policy, issue, if I'm being completely honest with you. We can't just make it about one team or one player. I would be fine with the suspension more so if there were other people or if everybody was put on notice and then something happened. And so now we're all playing on the same field. How do you differentiate between a 10 technical player, which 4 of whatever Phil's technicals are flopping technicals, they're not all behavioral technicals, as opposed to a guy who has 6 or 5? So now we're saying that 6 is too many, but 5 is okay.
So what you're saying is the OVC does not have a black and white line in the sand that says when you reach this amount of technical fouls, like the NBA does.
Correct.
The NBA has that. And when you reach this, the OVC does not have that policy, so you feel arbitrarily it was handed down to Russell.
I agree with what you just said. I don't think that you can – I understand, and again, we were put on quote-unquote notice. So, we talk to the guys all the time. Everybody has the freedom of choice, but you don't always have the freedom of consequence. So we did leave that door open. That's on us. We have to take ownership for that. But one guy isn't just the issue. I could sit here and tell you many of stories. This season, last season, I was bumped into by a player and told to shut the F up by that particular player. Now, I'm a grown adult. Professionals can be professionals. Adults can handle adults. I've never called the league office in 3 years. I don't think that that's my job. This isn't a tattletale deal. I can handle that. And if I can't handle that, then I probably don't deserve or need to be in a leadership role. And so I took that as, okay, hey, this is an 18 to 22-year-old young man. We all make mistakes. No problem. Heat of battle? Cool. Do I think the guy's going to come and fight me? I don't think so. So I'm good with that. Do I have to go tell his head coach? No. You know what we did? We went to the huddle. We drew up a play to go at him, to score on him, to get him in trouble, and for his team to lose. And ultimately, we did win that basketball game. And so you go through the handshake line, you look him dead in his eye, and you tell him, good game. And he knows exactly what you're saying because he knows exactly what he did. He knows it's not right. But do I need to go and call everybody in front every time something happens? And I just don't think that needs to be the case. So obviously frustrated by it because it affects our team. It affects Aquan Smart. It affects Adam Larson. It affects Keith Pickens. It affects SEMO. And again, at that point in the season, it's unfortunate and frustrating because it puts a bad taste in your mouth. It affects the seeding. Now you got to go 4 in 4 days. Who's to say that's not to say that you definitely would have won the game against Lindenwood, but it definitely makes a distraction that didn't necessarily need to be there when we were just playing some of our best basketball of the season those last 2 games. And again, I do want to say, Eric, that it's not singular to just the conference, or we knew what the consequences would be, and so there's some ownership on that side of it too. So I don't want to make it seem like that, but yeah, very frustrated with it. Got to get it controlled and handled and under control. But again, did it really need to come to this? Because now where do you draw the line? Where's that line drawn? So the other thing that I think that is worrisome about it is now Saturday's game, DeJuan Pruitt knocks Phil down, stands over him. He gets a technical. Well, now Philip Russell's in no position to where he can react. And so now everyone has free reign to just go poke and poke and poke and poke, and now that's what we've opened up.
It's like in baseball, early in a game, where maybe somebody gets hit by a pitch, and the umpires overreact and say, okay, each team gets a warning. So anyone else gets hit by a pitch, you're ejected. Well, you've just taken away the inside of the plate to the
Right.
pitcher. He can't pitch inside. He thinks he's going to get ejected if a ball gets loose. What you're saying is basically the same thing. Okay, Philip Russell is out there playing with 4 fouls.
Yeah. And you can't. There has to be some level of emotion that a player is allowed
Sure.
to play with. Now, again, if they cross that line, of course, that's what the technicals are in place for, to handle that type of behavior. And again, we've tried some things, we've talked all that type of stuff as well. But now going forward, when you put it out there publicly like that, well, now everybody knows. Hey, well, if we just get him going, and it just, to me, that's not what it should be about either. But again, to go back what I said earlier, we put ourselves in that position too. So shame on us a little bit. But at the end of the day, I struggle with that one.
Biggest game of the year. I mean, obviously he's not available for you. You win that game, you are not playing on the first day of the tournament, whether you get a 2 seed or not. If you win your final 2, you're the 2 seed, but you're not playing day 1. Basically, is the bottom line.
Correct.
And he got suspended for that particular game. Does it almost act like I don't know what your view is, like a designated driver? Do you have a designated guy or guys out there that if maybe Philip looks like he's getting a little emotional in a certain situation, they're the designated driver, Phil?
Yeah,
I know you shouldn't have to do.
We got our man Aquan Smart here. Sometimes we got to have a designated driver for Aquan too. So, again, I never tell any of these guys to not be who they are.
Sure.
I love the fire and the passion that Phil plays with. That's what makes him who he is. And so again, there's got to be a little leeway for some of that. Now again, if he crosses the line, then you got to handle that. But to answer your question, each guy goes through some emotional ups and downs. And again, that's my biggest issue with the whole thing. It's not just singular to Phil Russell, Quan Smart, or Dylan Branson. The whole league has. We could sit here for hours, Eric. I could talk you through certain scenarios and situations that have happened that they deemed were too much by Phil that everyone else in the league is doing too.
We just got to look at the Tennessee State game. I mean, my goodness, they get 7 technicals in that game, and Junior Clay goes after Russell, and he gets ejected from the game. I mean, yeah.
And again, you said that, not me. So I don't. To me, it's hard to draw. When we start drawing lines in late February, it just makes it tough. But Phil wanted to go back again in the game against Edwardsville. And I just was like, hey, I just don't trust that the right things are going to happen. Not that I don't trust you, but what if a situation happens or now that they put somebody else in the game with 2.5 minutes to go, and for all intents and purposes, the game was over. They beat us, shake their hand, good for them. But we put you in, and now someone else on their team does something, and then the ref doesn't see it, and they just ding you for no reason because they're human. They can make mistakes. Well, now we just ran the risk, and that's what my point earlier was. Like, we can't even run those risks of that happening, and that shouldn't be on an official to have to be the reason why a guy gets suspended or not. And so again, I don't. Again, I want to make it clear, Eric, that you open up some of your own problems.
Sure.
But at the same time, it just if again, if it would have been put out for everybody, hey, here, everybody in the conference, this is what it is. If you do this, we are going to review that, and then here's the consequences for that. Hey, it is what it is then at that point. But that's not exactly
There
how
is
it was
no
in.
black and white standard in the Ohio Valley Conference rulebook.
Not to my knowledge. I think that there will be going forward, but
Sure.
again, all the more reason why it probably, or at least in my view, and my point of view, it should have been handled that way then until after the season, and because there are none of those hard lines in place. But again, that we were warned, and we did cross that line after we were warned. So again, you don't have the freedom of choice. The consequences after your choices.
So, did they basically say, I mean, did you get a little gun shy about putting Phil back in the game? Did they say any technicals going forward and you get another game suspended? Did they say anything going forward, or this is it, and we'll review on a case-by-case basis?
More of a review kind of case by case.
Okay.
I don't think it's
All
one of those situations where if they call him for a flop, he's going to get suspended. You know what I mean? I don't think that's the case.
Sure.
It better not be, or it shouldn't be, I should say. It's not like I have any power or say so in this type of a situation. But I don't think that that's going to be the case going forward. But again, that's what we've opened up, though, is now for all these interpretations, especially now when we go to the conference tournament, it's game. So it's like, are we going to get a phone call if there's a flopping technical, or if we go to the monitor, like, are now we doing a monitor review to the monitor review to find out if he can play on third? You know what I mean? It's just it seems to be a whole lot of moving parts and pieces, and again, that is not singular to one player or one program. I do feel firmly on that.
And clearly they're making up the punishment sportsmanship rules as they go along, because there's really I know there's a sportsmanship policy. We see Bet the Bush on the Show Me Center jumbo board, but that's basically talking to the fans.
And again, we have to understand too. It's an unfortunate lesson. Hopefully, our people understand it. Is that when there aren't things in place, there's going to be someone that has made an example. There's always that first guy that has made an example of, and unfortunately for us, it seems that was the case. Because again, there is not a singular person or a singular team issue, to me, in my opinion. Because like I said, I can tell you a whole bunch of things that have happened this year and last year and everything else. But that I, a former player, coached for quite a few years, understand as 18 to 22-year-old young men and emotions, and nothing in my 3 years in this conference has gone across the line. We have a little bit too much of this or a little bit too much of that, which you expect from time to time, because it's competitive. You have guys trying to play at their highest level. You've got stress, you've got pressure, you've got everything involved in this thing. It's not high school where you show up and you go home and you're mad for a couple of days and you go home. There's serious things at stake here. So I try to understand that and understand what the game actually is. And like I said, the one scenario of the young man a year ago of our quote unquote prize team in the league now acted that way. Well, I'm not calling anybody for that. It's a young man that I can handle that. We're going to backdoor him out of this next time out, and we're going to score on him, and we're going to win the game. So that's just my mindset of it all. And so again, hopefully we don't have to revisit this issue. It can be behind us, and we can move forward, and we can grow up and learn from it and mature from it, and not let it become an issue in the future.
And not to get lost in the Lindenwood game was the performance by Chris Harris, coach. 36 points in the basketball game, 11 for 13 from the field, 13 of 18 from the free throw line. Your thoughts on the way that Chris Harris carried your team against Lindenwood?
Yeah, and so basically to how your question started